Good morning. Good morning. I'm so excited to start this new show that is called Bad Boss with Anya Soto. Why Bad Boss? After training and coaching for the past 10 years, I keep hearing, why do people quit? And I think a lot of you would say, we quit because of bad bosses. Like you, I had many amazing leaders, great leaders, and some really crappy bosses. So I wanted to start this show where, with my experience and all the work we do with organizations, I'm going to talk about who are those bad bosses and how can they become better versions of themselves. How can they create better work environments? How can they create better teams? How can you be better just a little bit? Imagine, I didn't call it the best boss. I didn't call it the perfect boss. I said, hey, how can you be a better boss? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about trust and psychological safety, because this is the topic that keeps coming up a lot in organization. So let's start with why should you trust me? I've done this work for the past 10 years with organizations that go from like a small moms and pop shops of 10 to national banks. I've been coaching leaders inside organizations. I have been training thousands of managers. I think we've worked with over 50 companies in the last just 3 or 4 years that when we started actually counting. And we do everything from assessment, culture assessment, to identifying the leadership team, working with the leadership team, building vision, and then training managers. So I didn't call the show how to expose bosses, how to expose cultures. I don't want to do this. I actually want to educate people. I want to invite guests who will help us say, okay, what makes someone an amazing boss? What have you seen? What made someone a toxic boss? And what could they have done better? So if you are a leader inside organizations and would like to be on this LinkedIn Live Bad Boss show with Anya Soto and share your experiences, I'd be happy to have you as a guest and just go into a conversation with you. So I wanted to share with you a topic of like, why do people quit? And I promise I'll connect it back to trust. Why do people quit? If I were to ask, and if you're watching this right now live, please leave a comment. What are your thoughts? Like, why do people quit? Uh, what I'm hearing inside organizations, that the first thing people would say, especially managers and leaders, is about compensation. People want to make more money. People want to make more money. We've been talking about a great resignation, right? Where people finally had actually time to think about their life. Oh, I see. Not call out, but educate. Yeah, thanks, Suze. So I wanted to share with you a couple of data points that we now have about great resignation and compensation, just so you know, ranked number 16th on the list. Not one, not five, not even 10, 16th. MIT did a study, and I'll put that in the comments. And if you're watching this later, keep adding your ideas and thoughts, like, why do people quit? And again, there are a variety of reasons. MIT study did a research, and they said that about 40% of all employees were thinking about leaving during the Great Resignation. 40%. They studied 34 million online employee profiles that they analyzed, right? And figured out that across all industries, and it's, again, I'll share the study, it was all across different industries, both blue collar and white collar sectors, with equal force. People were quitting their jobs. And here's what they found. The number one predictor of employee turnover was toxic corporate culture. The number one. Then it's followed by job insecurities, high levels of innovation, failure to recognize employee performance, and then poor response to COVID. Okay, the number one predictor. You won't even see compensation here. And again, in this show, we're going to be diving deeper into what are some reasons, what makes someone a bad boss versus a good boss. So diving into toxic corporate culture, and this is why I wanted to start with trust and psychological safety. The show, psychological safety, right, is defined, let me read to you, is the Psychological safety, I know I wrote it somewhere, is basically defined by a culture, is a climate in which people are comfortable expressing and being themselves. People are comfortable expressing and being themselves. And you saw probably on my profile, I did a couple of surveys and I said, okay, what contributes? So important thing to notice when clients bring us in and we start talking about psychological safety, I think there's a myth and misunderstanding that says, psychological safety is a space where nobody feels like, they're going to be offended. We can't even joke about it. People want safety. Like, we used to work and we used to make fun of each other and it was fun. And now people just want psychological safety environment that is very sterile. No, psychological safety is actually a very brave space. It's a space where people feel safe to have honest, authentic conversation. People feel safe to give candid feedback. People feel safe to call in the office and say, hey, the thing that you did really hurt me, or feel safe admitting mistakes. And I think now we have so much more language. And if you're a manager who is not adapting to creating psychological safety and a culture of inclusion, you will become obsolete. Just like we're talking about technology and we're saying, okay, people, we have to get right on trained with the technology. Machine learning is here. Artificial intelligence is here. You don't want to become the next Nokia, right? We have to adapt to new technologies. Same is happening with the work environment and culture. And managers could feel like, well, the workplace is not a place to talk about emotions. This is not a place to be yourself. This is a place to clock in, right? Come to work and do your work. But at the same time, those are the same employers that don't want people to just clock in and out. They want people to feel committed, to feel loyal. So what is creating this? 1.3 million Glassdoor reviews, right? Again, the study asks what creates a toxic culture? What are the contributors? Number one was disrespectful. That's the number one, where people did not feel respected for their opinions, for their life experience. We see it a lot of with diverse talent, where you're hired, right, for your diverse perspective and diverse experience, but then nobody really cares about your opinion. The second one was non-inclusive. Not being invited to meetings, not being in the rooms where decisions are being made that affect you. That was all across the board. Third one was unethical. And unethical means lying, withholding information, non-compliance with some of the rules. Unethical is also backstabbing, throwing people under the bus. Then there's like full-on cutthroat environment where people just winners or losers. There are only two options. And abusive. The thing with abusive is actually very easy to identify. Abusive is it's bullying, it's yelling, it's shouting at employees, belittling, demeaning. When we see that behavior, clients reach out to us and say, we need a very specific coaching, right, for abusive leaders. So if you have someone who is abusive in your organization, that is easy to find. Disrespectful and non-inclusive is like termites in the house. You walk in and everyone is smiling, everyone is in a good mood, everyone is at the meeting. It's the little micro comments, microaggressions. It's the birthday party that everybody went to, but some people were not invited, right? It's the meeting where we're asking everybody for opinions except these two people because they never contribute, and the manager doesn't even feel that they need to invite them. I like to think of meetings as you as a leader are responsible for the inclusive space that you create as a manager. If this is your meeting, if you call the meeting, you're responsible. Analogy would be inviting people to your house. And some people are still in the driveway because they're not sure if they should call the doorbell or they should knock or come in. Some people came in, but they're still in the hallway. Nobody invited them. You're there with your group of friends, you're having drinks, you're laughing, and other people are just standing in the hallway, not sure what's happening and where do they belong, right? Where should they join? Should they not? Like there's things happening in the chat. So as a manager, think about it. You're inviting people into your space and you're responsible for people to feel included. You're responsible for people to feel engaged. You're responsible to make sure that you introduce everybody, that you ask people, when you ask people for their opinions, that you ask everyone to contribute. If you're seeing a power dynamic, this is also a big conversation, right? We're having with leadership teams. There's a power dynamic. We talk about safe spaces, like we can't promise a safe space because of power dynamic, because some people, if you say something wrong, people might laugh. For someone else, they're one paycheck away from being homeless. Acknowledging the power dynamic and saying, even though I am a leader and even though I will probably make the decision at the end of the day, I want to hear your perspectives. I want everybody to contribute. And when people do contribute, actually listening and acknowledging different perspectives doesn't mean you'll have to make the decision, but to listen and acknowledge. So with the disrespectful, what are some words that people are saying, right? Because I said we do a lot of culture survey, we speak with a lot of managers, and in our trainings, we create a lot of spaces. The disrespectful is dystopian, dumpster fire, soul crushing. Those are some words. Again, if you're watching this live or you'll be watching it in a recording, like what are some other words you would see? What were some ways that you felt disrespectful? Catherine said, what a great analogy with the house party. Thank you, Catherine, right? It's the small little moments of I am, as a leader, I'm responsible for the space that I created. So what are some other examples of like disrespectful workplaces? I feel it a lot around like experience, right? We're going to hire someone who actually doesn't have an MBA, but then we're going to completely dismiss their opinions because most of the people on this team have a specific education. Then why did you bring me in, right? Or what do you have to say if you only, we see it a lot with older and younger generation, right? Disrespect for, you're baby boomers, you don't know anything, to Gen Z, who is like, you have no experience. And it goes both ways, right? This is where we are seeing a lot of disrespect. Non-inclusive. This is favoritism, comes up a lot. The cool kids, we often talk with organizations, what is your dominant organizational identity? Dominant means the majority of people are like this. Are the majority of people single at your workplace, or are they married? Are the majority of your people, let's say, engineers, technicians? What is the average age? And then everybody that has any diverse or marginalized identities, right, will not be in the majority. They're the minority that don't feel included. And again, as a leader, I want you to make a list. This is going to be how to be a better boss, lesson number 1. I want you to write down the names of the people that report to you and go one by one and identify, okay, why am I not respecting them? Or what was it that they said or did? Where am I maybe biased, or do I have an evidence, right, to not respect them? And not disrespect might come with, I can't rely on them. They didn't show up with at the meeting. They said they'll do something, they didn't do it, or the way they treat other employees. Because if it is, you have evidence for why you might be disrespecting them, then maybe you should just let them go. But if you're just biased because you're like, I don't know, you're so much younger, you have no experience, without even giving someone a chance, right, to show you who they are and what their story is and what they can contribute, just check in your biases. Same with non-inclusive, like who is not invited, right? What are some non-inclusive behaviors that you felt in your own life, and who do you have assumptions about? Who is not invited to meetings? Who is not invited to strategy calls? Who is not invited into high visibility projects? Because again, you might be biased saying, well, these people have a lot, they don't have the experience needed, so I'm going to delegate this specific task to someone else. Where are people not feeling like they belong to this organization? And what are the conversations you need to have when we do this work? And it's a big, right, very labor inducive work to go inside organizations and really start changing them and training managers. Why I say managers? Because we can have a toxic leadership And often that's very quickly identified. And then if managers are not in alignment with toxic leadership, usually managers leave. And we see a lot of supervisors, managers, leaders quit. There's a high turnover at that level. If we see that it's actually managers and supervisors stay and they bought into this culture, right? And maybe it's often they go against what they believe in, but it's the people on their team that quit, right? So it's like, what is organizational? What is systemic? Right? What is the systemic issues that we have set up where managers are maybe you're not even allowed to evaluate people on their values or the way they show up and treat each other, but rather very like direct numbers and KPIs, right? How much does your leadership put emphasis on who we are as human beings? And is D&I, diversity and inclusion and equity, something that is being talked about or not? And where is it organizational? Where is it individual behaviors, things that you allow on your team as a leader, things that you tolerate? Again, back channeling, meetings, DMs in a Zoom meeting, or having a meeting after the meeting. If you know about it and you tolerate it, you allow it. Going back to that analogy about the house party, if two of your team members or your friends are talking shit about someone else by the garage, you're allowing it. You're not taking a stand, right? So you are responsible for the lack of psychological safety, right, or toxicity. Let me read a couple of comments. Diane said, disrespect tends to happen when people stereotype instead of seeing people as individuals with unique skills, experience, insights. And by stereotype, I mean put it in the box, age boxes, years of experience boxes, gender, race, in crowd, popular. Oh, I love it. Yes, Diane, you're speaking my language, right? Again, that's why we call it like, is it stereotyped? Is it biased? Like I come in and we have 5 people who have been with us for 7 years. And then there are like 2 new people who we were so excited to hire. We were so excited to bring them on. And now we're like, yeah, no, you have not been here long enough, right? The veteran status, we see that a lot. People who say, well, we've gone through pandemic together. We've gone through divorce together. We've gone through layoffs together. Like they have this bond. And it is true, you do have this bond. But it's like, how do you start inviting other people in to avoid the group thing? So this is what I wanted to share today. I wanted to start with the bad boss, better boss, talking about trust, right? What creates trust and what corrodes trust. We will have an internal webinar, and I'll put a link on March 15th, where I'm going to talk a little bit more about psychological safety and how do we actually build trust on our teams? How do we avoid turnover? How do we avoid toxicity? How do we start having conversations, right? Better conversations, asking better questions. Again, where am I being disrespectful as a leader, as a manager? Where am I being non-inclusive? Where am I being unethical? What are some words for unethical, right? Shady, cheat, make false promises, smoke and mirrors, gaslighting, sugarcoating. Like those are like some good words, right? That again came through the analysis of 1.3 million Glassdoor reviews. These are the comments. Please leave a comment. I wanted to keep it under 20 minutes. As I said, I will be having guests. We will be talking about different experience with better boss, bad bosses, what creates toxic cultures, and how can we educate each other and give each other experience. Maybe I am naive, but I like to stay naive because it allows me to do the work that I do. But when it comes to managers, so many people are being promoted as individual contributors. They're not bad people. They don't have the tools and the skills. They were not set up to lead teams. And I see these amazing human beings, people who really want to be better bosses. They want to be better managers who just don't have the language or the tools. Organization did not invest time and did not set them up properly to lead teams, to build high performing teams, to build trust. Because all of those skills that I was discussing today, they're teachable, they're observable, they're learnable. We learn how to be inclusive. We learn how to be ethical. We learn how to stop the cutthroating behaviors, right? How to address bullying. We have all of these trainings. Reach out, leave a comment, email me. Let me know if you want to be on the show. Send me a message and let's continue to learn from each other, with each other inside the community. How can we create better workplaces and how can we create better leaders? So don't be a bad boss. Send this to your colleagues and leave a comment for me. I'm excited to go on this weekly or bi weekly journey with you.